Another episode starting. I can't say we're back now.
19, episode 19.
I got it right, Josh. I got it right
smart.
this time. Yeah.
I have to pretend to be smart when we have Herman on,
It's
because
true.
otherwise he'll make me look stupid. He probably will anyway. But...
Oh, stop.
With that kind of intro?
Stop.
With that kind of intro? Oh, please.
So we have... Herman's one of the first guys I reached out to come onto the show, but he had to make sure we weren't a bunch of clowns before he came on here, which I totally understand. And
Yeah, there's always a clown test.
So Mike Aiello was coming on tonight, but he's in the fire station tonight, and he was like, dude, it's 90 degrees, the whole city's on fire, I can't come on. So I was like, all right, that makes sense. And luckily Herman was available. So
I was just within range of tanness to replace Mike.
Yes. So how's it going, Herman?
Pretty good. Just training and training and training and training.
Yeah.
I don't really pull much these days outside of local tournaments, so that's all I do.
So
A
a
local tournament arm wrestler.
for the most part, what does training mean to you? Is it a mix of things? Is it mostly just table time, or what's that mean to you, training?
It's always been a mix of things, and it's probably changed over the years. I started in 2010, and I guess early on it was more powerlifting focused, and over time the powerlifting sort of goes down and the arm wrestling portion sort of goes up. Part of that is due to necessity, right, and what I need to do to become a better arm wrestler. Part of that is just motivations come and go, right? Mm-hmm. So I just don't feel like powerlifting much these days.
Mm.
So how long did you powerlift for?
I didn't compete competitively,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I probably was really serious from maybe 2010 to probably early 2013. And I had different phases where deadlift was focused, and then that was probably a year, and then I tried to squat for a year, and then there was like a month period where I bench pressed like 30 days in a row, 90+% every day, and then my second workout per day was 90+% on shoulder press. So I've learned that I can handle quite a bit of abuse, and I do burn things out. I think the first year my deadlift went from 315 to 545 for 3 with no belt, no chalk, nothing. I just get bored. I just overdo things.
You do that with everything in life?
Yep.
Yeah. Now let me ask you, out of all 3 of those exercises, or 4 of those exercises, did any of them translate to arm wrestling?
Oh, I think they all do.
Yeah.
Right. They all translate to arm wrestling. I mean, to this day, I don't do a lot of hand and wrist training, right? I think a lot of that's carryover from the heavy deadlifting, right? No straps, no chalk, right? I mean, a lot of times I even hooked my wrists over while doing my deadlifts. I didn't do a hook grip.
You're right.
My wrists were usually engaged while deadlifting, and even rack deadlifts. So that carried over. I mean, front shoulder's important, triceps are important. So that all carried over from bench press and shoulder press. Squats, I mean, just having the structural stability means my body's so strong that I'm never going to be in jeopardy on the table. It's always going to be my bicep that fails or my side pressure that fails, right? Whereas I've seen people that have really strong arms, but they can't even keep themselves upright at the table.
Right.
I can take their whole body over to the side. So, all these things carry over. I think they're all important.
Yeah, I think people forget the necessity of a strong core to be a good arm wrestler.
Yeah, and I mean, training core doesn't necessarily mean planks and sit-ups, right?
Right.
I mean, if you're squatting, 500 pounds and deadlifting 600 pounds and you're benching almost 400 pounds, you're probably going to have a strong core.
Right.
Otherwise, my body would have just snapped in half.
And really what you get good at too, especially with squats, is that you get really good at taking in a deep breath, really crunching the core. And we all know if you're in a death match on the table, you're basically doing that. It's very tough to breathe when you're at 100% on the table.
Yeah, it teaches you fundamental, strength operations, right? It's much easier to focus in a bench or a squat on the breathing in, right, holding the breath, going through the motion, and breathing out. Arm wrestling is so complicated that if you don't know these things for a simple movement like squats, you won't know how to do that with complex high hooking at high speeds, right?
Right. Yeah. If you can't combine, like, that's the whole thing too. Like, for us, arm wrestling is such second nature that we don't think about all that stuff anymore. So the operational, being able to breathe and be able to crunch when it's time to release when it's time to relax certain muscle groups, all that to us, we don't think about that ever. But when you're newer, you do a whole lot.
Yeah, it makes it very hard to teach.
Yeah, especially when, we've all been there when we try to teach somebody something for 3 months in a row and they just don't get it. And then one day they do, and they're like, oh, that's really what I worked for this whole time?
Well, hell, most of the time, it's not that they get something. It's I remember that missing step that I forgot to tell them.
Yeah.
It's second nature for me. So that's usually what happens.
Yeah.
If I figure out that I'm not telling them the whole story.
Yeah, it's very difficult to become a rookie again when you're explaining something to a rookie.
Correct.
Yeah. I definitely agree.
So, you've basically been pulling 6 years. And why did you decide, that you had enough of like the bigger circuit and that you wanted to stay local?
Well, the thing is, I just don't have the opportunities, right? So, UAL has sort of died down a little bit, right? Although I did do a UAL event in April in Dallas, right? I won that, so that was okay. But outside of one-off events from UAL, PAL is kind of limited. I mean, with their Vendetta series, I mean, you're only going to get so many matches, right? Actually, you may get one match, and you may never get another match.
Right.
So unless you're Zoloev or something like that, you're not going to get regular work on the Vendetta series, right? Then there's the WAL series and their contracts, right? So that's really, I pulled everything, including WAL, until they started requiring the contracts. And for me, it's sort of a principle issue that prevents me from signing that contract, right? When I signed that contract, all of the requirements, all of the restrictions, all of the expectations are on me, the arm wrestler.
Yep.
Right? I'm the one that can't do this. I can't do that. I have to do this. I have to do that. There is nothing on the WAL side that says they have to do anything, right? And you saw it this year when they cut all the payouts. That's not a fair deal to me, especially if it's a 2-year deal, right? And in the second year, you can change payouts, right? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That's not fair, right? So if I would have signed this deal in 2014 and they were pressuring me at the 2014 Vegas WAL event, right, I would have signed that contract saying, I'm going to win maybe $40,000 next year, right? I'm competitive right and left-handed. I might win $40,000. This is worth it to sign the contract. Or I can get 2/3 and win 10 grand. This is worth signing the contract. Well, that's not the case because they just changed all the money.
Right.
So if 40,000 was my number, or if 10,000 for 2/3 was my number, that changed in the second year, and that's not right.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. If you sign a contract, it's a deal, right? And the deal shouldn't have these things thrown in. So I mean, I definitely understand that. Like, you can't change the expectations that you were given. So the expectations on the other side probably shouldn't change all that much either.
Yeah. Furthermore, right, it was not only that WAL is going to pay $20,000 for first place every year, blah, blah, blah. It was WAL is going to do drug testing, and you, Herman Stevens, will win. That was the deal that was pitched to me, right? So and this is not about my opinion on drugs or any of that stuff. This is what I was told. Right? So that's not right, because I would have signed that deal and I would have been like, okay, sir, yes, this is a great idea. Let me sign this contract. I would have signed that in 2014, and my heart would have been broken, like their hearts broken right now over that issue.
Sure.
Because these guys thought they were going to win because it was going to be drug tested and we know who those guys are. They would have won the tournament at that point.
So
it's principles, it's lies, it's unfairness, it's all kinds of things that leads me to just stay at home.
So what do you think is going to happen with them over the next couple of years? Do you see them surviving, or do you think that this kind of stuff is going to push more and more people out?
I don't know. Again, I was at the WL event in Vegas, June 2014. I did well there. I watched the finals in 2015 in person. I watched the finals in 2016 in person, and the atmosphere seems to continually go down, right? There's no music, there's no announcer in person, so I don't think they've figured out how to do the live portion yet. I don't
Okay.
think they've figured out how to get the crowd in it outside of the arm wrestling community. I even spoke to Travis about it, and Travis says he would do it differently, right? And that doesn't make Travis right or them wrong,
No,
but
of course not.
yeah, I'm not impressed. I mean, I think their production quality on television is pretty good, but I still think they have a long ways to go. At the same time, I don't see a constant improvement, right?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think I mean, to be honest, they took a step back. I mean, the prize money was something a lot of people talked about, and I'm sure you noticed, as everybody else did, that the quality of, I mean, or at least the depth of the classes was not equal to the first year. I mean, there's still amazing people there, but there wasn't the same number. And a lot of people use that, rationale for why they didn't travel is because they have less of a chance to come home with any, real money, because after you get past the first couple of guys, there wasn't really even enough to pay for their travel. And we've talked online about the contracts and the fact that WOL is trying to professionalize the sport and all that sort of thing. But as you just stated eloquently, a contract goes both ways, and at this point, the WOL contract is not doing anything for the athletes themselves. And I feel like if there was a significant and strong alternative right now, more people would leave, but there really isn't. I mean, I think PAL wants to be, that organization, and whether they can do that or not is yet to be seen. And so that's probably keeping some people in the WO that would otherwise leave. But I have a hard time seeing how they maintain what they have now for the next couple of years.
No, I definitely agree, right? But I think a lot of people are driven by, achievement, right? Mm-hmm. They want to get that medal. They want to get on television, right? They want to be seen, even if it's just a Facebook, picture and a Facebook video.
Yeah.
They will sign the documents. They will, lose money, right, to an organization that's attempting to make money off of them, just for those types of reasons, right? Personally, I don't need any more money. It won't make me any happier, right? I don't need any exposure. Right, I have plenty of friends. Right, I have sufficient likes on Facebook, so I'm perfectly fine with staying at home. And for me, it's a benefit, right? I can just train my butt off, right?
Right.
So
let's talk about the training stuff, man. I mean, I would like to get your opinions out publicly about the table curls that we were discussing online. I mean, we see everybody do them. Voveda and all the old school guys constantly do table curls, but I thought you and Chris Gabi made some really intelligent points about whether or not there's any usefulness to them at all. So what's your opinion on them to begin with?
Well, one, I think they seem to be incredibly damaging. Right, I think I made the comment, right? As your weight goes up, your cushion disappears. Right, I've seen people with cushions that were 2 inches thick that are now, 3/4 of an inch thick. They just cushioned where they have nothing. Your your ulnar nerve, whichever one runs by your elbow, that one's being compressed. I think you'll eventually lose feeling in your fingers. Right, I had those problems at some point. I don't know if it was from table curls or just general compression on my elbow.
Yeah,
and I was taking a lot of hits. This was back in 2011. And taking a lot of hits on the table, compressing my ulnar nerve a lot, and I was losing feeling in my fingers. So I'm not really excited about any kind of training that puts pressure on my elbow. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can do similar work, right, on a preacher bench, right, where the back of your arm's on the pad or something like that, but so you can distribute that pressure or that force. But I'm not sold on table curls. I think it's a cool arm wrestling move if you want to post stuff on Facebook, though, right?
Yeah.
You get a lot of fans,
That does seem to be the primary use of it these days.
Yeah, the debate for me is still out on curls in general. Curls are great, right? But I've got a guy on the team who's 165 pounds, He's been training with me for a year and pretty much curls the same amount that I can curl. So,
Yeah.
and he hasn't beaten me yet. So just to clear that up.
That was the next question.
Yeah. So yeah, if he beat me, then I mean that probably means something, right?
Right.
So yeah, I just think your time could be spent doing something else.
Yeah, I don't do any curls at all. The only things I ever do are holds, but I always just focus on staying as tight as I can. Once it starts opening up, and that's where I'm training from, it kind of seems like that's where I'm trying to get strong. And I think everybody's a little stronger opened up a bit already. So I'm not really sure if you're trying to train weakness, I'm not sure if training your arm opened up and extended is really the good target.
No, all my training is all tight, close in, because that's where I need to be strong at, right? If I'm already separated out to this strong position, which I think is just an eccentric strength,
Right.
you're always going to be stronger in that eccentric zone,
Mm-hmm.
losing anyway, right? Not to mention it's a little more damaging, and because I like to train more frequently, I typically avoid that stuff. I'm not going to say it's entirely useless, but I still make progress doing what I do, right? So that's still a switch I have in the bag, right? So if my training stalls, I can always go to eccentrics to get some gains.
What are some of the?
I don't even really do isometrics. I've thrown them in like every once in a while for like a couple of weeks, and I get a few more percent quickly.
Right.
Not even an isometric guy, so.
Yeah, I pepper it in there too because I find if I do it too often, I get tendonitis, probably just from a lack of good healthy range of motion. But yeah, I think we all get enough isometrics if you train enough on the table anyway. I mean that's pretty much what we're doing anyway. So and eccentrics, you get even more of that towards the end, But it's just my opinion.
So what do you do, Herman? Can you share a couple of the exercises that you do typically?
I mean, it's all the same generic stuff that everyone does, right? I mean, I do some sort of rowing type exercise, right? I usually do my wrist curl built into that. I don't do a lot of separate wrist curls, right? A lot of rowing, some up pressure, and then side pressure movements, right? So for years, I mean, that was my workout, right? I go do some general powerlifting or some body weight gymnastic ring stuff to warm up. And then in my second half of the workout was always one of those three movements. And I mean, I think that gets you far enough, right? I mean, if you know how to program or you know how to build strength, I mean, just pick a rep number, sets of 3, sets of 10, sets of 50, and just work your way up. You'll get strong. I mean, I think the only thing that I've done that I don't hear a lot is maybe the frequency. But I think all the top guys are doing some sort of frequency, twice a day, 3 times a day type training. When I first met Todd Hutchings in 2014 after UAL 8, we discussed our training, and it came out to be pretty much identical, except for the fact that he does a lot more maximum effort stuff, specifically on side pressure. At the time, side pressure was just sort of casual.
Mm-hmm.
I was taking it slow. I didn't want to hurt myself. So he focused more on maximum effort, and he was based on a 5-3-1 powerlifting system.
Sure.
As my training was sort of based on Christian Thibodeau, T-Nation, Bulgarian system, more Olympic style, right? So
okay, gotcha.
Low reps, high explosive, perfect form, that kind of stuff, right? Todd probably doesn't really give a damn about his form, right? I think he just wants to move the heaviest weight possible.
Right.
It's basically what he told me. But my focus is what can I move with the right form.
Yeah, and I think you're probably right about frequency. Twice a day has been my thing for a while, and it's not always the same workout. Obviously, both times you do it, but I think a lot of arm wrestlers talk about overtraining, and they're not even close to it. And I also think that one of the key metrics that people are missing in arm wrestling training, even today, is basic strength programming. It's not that hard.
Yeah, you got to be willing to do the reading and go learn some basic physiology, right? Some basic, strength training stuff that I guess someone might learn in school or on a training course, and learn how your body functions, learn how programs are built, right? People are just lazy, and that goes with everything. I don't care if it's their car or their dishwasher or their arm wrestling program. They don't want to read. They don't want to learn anything. They just want the quick solution, right? So, I mean, even when I was in college, I think I spent more time reading about strength training and nutrition than I did about engineering, right? So I mean, it's pretty serious. I mean, it's its own. I mean, it's a whole professional field, right? And I think as a pro athlete, you have to know that. Unless you're rich and you can pay me to train you, right? You have to know these things.
Yeah, and I think it's something that's very simple that people could pick up. Maybe not necessarily, I don't want to say simple, but it is really simple though. There might be a lot to learn, but it's not, once you learn it, it's very easy to build a good program, a good solid program. And then once you get past that, maybe it's a little more difficult. But, you know, just basic strength programming, I think would get a lot of arm wrestlers very far.
Correct. And then to your point, you mentioned not doing the same workout in a day. I would argue that maybe you should do the same workout twice in a day, and maybe the exact same workout twice a day, every day, until something happens. I mean, there have been times where, you know, I was eating like once a day, and I'd have 3 workouts before that one meal, and all those workouts were almost identical from an arm wrestling standpoint. The general components from those workouts were fairly different and included gymnastic stuff at one workout and powerlifting at another workout and Olympic stuff at another workout. But I mean, I did that, like, you can do that 3 days a week for like 3 weeks, then your testosterone crashes and you're sitting in the dark wondering what happened and you realize sports-induced depression. But I mean, I think there's like so much more that people can do, and they never even get close.
I totally agree. Now, that's something you just brought up right there that I don't think people, they probably just said, what are you talking about? Sports-induced depression. If you've never trained hard enough to be depressed, then you haven't trained hard enough yet.
I've sat in my room in the dark for 5 days straight, eating as much as possible, and I lost 10 pounds. My hormones were all jacked up and stuff like that. And I'm not saying do that all the time.
No.
But you need to find those limits, right? So you understand where you are and what you can do. And again, sports depression is not, oh, you got the 3rd place medal at the Buena Park World Amateur Championships. So that doesn't count. I know you're sad, but that's not really worth much. And no, it's not a world title. Apparently, I have 12 world titles, and I think Vosgen has 35.
There you go. Well, you know, pretty much every sport has a way to collect titles if that's what your game is, you know, regardless of what it is. And arm wrestling is certainly notorious for it. I mean, in the early days, not so much, but, you know, shortly after Petaluma exploded, suddenly there were 5 other world championships. Depending on what town you lived in and what state, you could find one and become a world champ. You know, we have the same thing now with the nationals.
Yeah, I want to be a judo novice champion.
Yeah.
There you go.
You could do that.
I'd imagine the average Joe off the street won't be able to mess with me in judo.
Probably not. Yeah, because, you know, especially when you're first starting, it's almost all strength-based. So if you're the stronger person, you have a very good shot.
Yeah, I'm going to get a judo novice world championship.
I'm a judo novice in 10-year-old division.
Yep, and then you'll see all my pictures on Facebook.
That's pretty sweet. I'll be sure to like it.
That's the reason people do a lot of sports, is to get a badass-looking profile pic, whether it's, you know, obstacle racing or arm wrestling. You get your muscles, you get veins popping out, you look like a badass, you know? It's perfect.
That's why I arm wrestle.
That's why most of us do it. That's certainly why I do it. You know?
That's why I'm gonna cut to 165 so I can be like Dave Shape.
Oh, Dave.
Shit.
That was interesting. Yeah, Dave was trying to cut all the way to 198 at 6'3". I don't know. Well, I mean, he probably knows if he's walked around at that weight in his adult life or not. It seems like a pretty tough cut to make.
You can't run. That's what I've learned in arm wrestling. You can't run.
That's right, Josh.
You run from Devin, you're going to be a much lesser man, and you're going to get Todd. And Todd's a lot meaner than Devin is. Todd don't care. Todd will break your arm.
I agree with that, Herman, because, you know, as I mentioned, I mean, some people that are, you know, walking around natural 198s were like, screw this, I'm going to do 225s, because they didn't want to deal with Todd and RVJ and Storm and everybody else. You can't run. No matter where you go, there's going to be somebody you wish you didn't have to face.
Yep.
And so then it's like, you know, do you do what you guys are talking about? Do you, like, put the pedal to the metal and train your ass off and see how far you can get? Or do you come up with other means of trying to, you know, find a different pathway to success? And it's not that, you know, what Dave is doing is a bad idea. It's a good idea. I mean, you should find what is your, you know, what your natural weight is and what the best place for you to compete is. But I agree that, which one of the points you made, Herman, was that, you know, we all have to be more patient to figure out how are we doing at this weight? Are we making continual progress? And if so, maybe it's better to be patient, wait it out for a few years, and see where you end up. Because you can't. I mean, everybody knows that in powerlifting too. If you haven't been doing it for 5 years, you have no clue what your strength level is. And a lot of us in arm wrestling, it hasn't been that long yet.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. Especially, and then if you're someone like Dave, right, who's that damn big, right, who's maybe only pulling for 3 years, right, he's probably still trying to recover. I don't think he's at that bulletproof stage yet.
Yeah.
So cutting all that weight's only going to hurt him, right? And I mean, I'm not picking on Dave. I mean, I think there's a lot of those guys.
We love you, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of those guys. He's just the one that posts about it on Facebook.
Yeah,
so,
we talked about it a bit with Craig Toulier, that newer arm wrestlers, and you can put whatever year or experience level you want on that term, newer arm wrestler. But newer arm wrestlers should really focus on becoming great arm wrestlers before they focus on a weight class.
Correct. And I mean, and if you want to talk about Craig, where would Craig be if he was still cutting the 143s at 42 years old or whatever with all those injuries?
Right.
I don't know if he would ever heal.
No, absolutely. And really, too, I mean, you have to kind of ask yourself the question of what's cooler, being the best in your weight class, like the best version of yourself at a certain weight class, or just being the best version of yourself. Because if you're training as hard as you can, eating as well as you can, all that stuff, you're going to be better than you are if you're constantly worrying about your weight.
Correct. And I think that's helped me a lot, right? I mean, I still have to make that 198 class if I want to go to something big. But it's something I think about all the time, right? Do I want to stay within the 198 range so I can be number one in the country or the world or something? Or do I become a 260-pound blob, but as strong as I possibly can be? Right. So it's hard, right? But I think a lot of people aren't anywhere near that decision, right? So they need to just let it go.
Yeah, and over the years, I started arm wrestling as 190 pounds. And now I'm 170 pounds. But I don't maintain 170 by restricting my calories. That's just the way it's worked out.
Yeah, it's who you want.
So I could make 154 if I wanted to, but I'm not going to be the best version of myself if I do. So I really don't have much interest in it, to be honest with you.
Right. You go to 154 and the hands are even bigger because Alan's in the class.
Yeah.
What did you accomplish?
Good thing I ran away from that 165 class.
Exactly.
Yeah, and another thing is, as you age, and not that, Dave and I are both over 40, and weight cutting becomes more and more tricky as you age. I mean, there's various complications. We've mentioned on other shows, and people have lost their gallbladder and stuff like that just because, your body is not prepared to do that over and over and over again throughout your life, particularly as you get older. Craig's chiming in here saying that it's good to hear he's just keeping being a blob, so he's listening to us making fun of him a little bit. We love you, Craig. Don't worry about it, man. I get all kinds of sarcastic comments on here, Herman. I'm trying to sift through them and find the funniest ones. Yeah, that's Craig.
Hey, Craig.
Not Tool here. Yeah, look at all these. Okay. All right, here's a question from John Cervantes. He wants to know what your current weight is and how you think you would have done in Vegas this year.
Oh, man. So I don't usually list my actual weight. I have my unofficial Facebook weights.
Oh, shit.
Which are usually 180 pounds or 250 pounds.
Oh.
So if it's a big person, I tell them I'm 250. If it's a small person who's running, I tell them I'm 180. And that usually pisses either one off. But I was 215 last week, but I'm eating into my match this weekend with Derek Smith. So I think I'll be 225, mostly water, glycogen, salt, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Is that left or right hand?
Both hands,
Ooh.
best of 5, alternating hands.
I like that.
1 minute rest, outside at a park in the sun. I'm sure my heat tolerance will be much better than Derek.
That's a good way to go into a match.
And then as for the WAL portion, it's funny. I'm never really the overly confident guy, right? I mean, I think I'm going into almost every event expecting to lose, right? And that usually helps me because I don't underestimate my competition and I don't take things easily or take people lightly.
Yeah.
But I mean, looking at the field this year, I think I would have done exceptionally well. And I'm not saying that I could beat Todd Hutchings, but I mean, I'm ready to pull Todd Hutchings. I mean, if there's any other way to say that, I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, you seem like a intelligent guy especially from an arm wrestling standpoint. You can kind of tell that you understand angles. You understand how to get strong. You know how Todd trains. You've pulled Todd before, so it's not like you're going in completely blind to the situation too.
Definitely not, right? And part of that is Todd's help, right? Todd said, hey, you need this amount of side pressure. You need this amount of that, right? And I'm well past those numbers. So,
That doesn't hurt confidence at all?
No, not at all, right? And I think at 6 years in, I've got way more to go in the tank.
Yeah.
I mean, like when I look at like a book of strength building techniques, I haven't even gotten off the basics. Right? So, I have so many tools left in the chest. And then there's that whole Anadrol switch or halotestin switch and that Trenbolone switch, right? So that's always out there, right?
Yeah.
I get some questions about that kind of stuff people are asking. Let me stick them in here. I got two, one from Craig and one from John Bailey. John Bailey, first of all, he wants to know if you're still obsessed with Tom Nelson, and then he wants to know if you take any supplements. And Craig is also asking. Yeah, these are all quotes.
Oh, really?
Quotes.
I don't know.
So blame them, not me. And then Craig is just curious about what your diet's like in general.
All right, so I'll touch on all of those. So Tom's cool in person. Tom on Facebook is a hot mess. And I guess about 2 years ago, Vosgen wanted to prank Tom by blocking him. Right, Vosgen was going to get a bunch of people to block Tom Nelson. Right.
That's wacky.
Tom, I know, right? I know. But I went along with it. Tom, I don't even think noticed it until like some extended period of time. And Vosgen never told me to unblock Tom. I didn't know the joke was off. And so Tom's been blocked for 2 years. and what I noticed is that my Facebook is a lot less vulgar. There's no men's asses on my phone as I'm scrolling at work. So this is good. Less chance of going to human resources. Right?
That's good.
So overall, I just left it that way. I don't think Tom likes it, but it is what it is. And then what did we say? We said diet, and then we said supplements.
Yes.
Both quoted and unquoted.
Correct.
So let's go diet first. I've tried just about everything. I've done, low carb, right? I've done the anabolic diet, right? Lately, I've been doing a ketogenic diet.
Wow.
And I've done intermittent fasting, right? Again, I take everything to the extreme, right? I've done, 4.5 day fasts, right? I think I could easily do like 10 plus days, but my friend told me there was no sports benefit to going past the point where I was, so I stopped. I've done basically everything. So I've been 187 low carb, right? I've lost tons of weight on keto, right? I've been 195 kind of eating out, but watching my carbohydrates, right? I think you can almost do just about anything, right? And then pretty much get in shape, right? And I've seen, like Chris Gobby, he's a jacked vegan, right? I don't know if I would go that far, but apparently you can do just about anything,
Right.
And it'll probably work. I think they all have pros and cons. When I was low carb, I would tend to, if you're low carb and you don't have enough fats in your diet, your hormones will get all out of whack. And
Sure.
that's what I noticed on keto is that I can fix those problems because I have enough fat and ketones to replace that energy source. So I don't know if anyone needs to go to those extremes, but I'm just always on the extremes, right? And that's good and bad, right? That's how you get to 235. That's how you get to 185.
Right.
I'm always all over the place, right? The one good thing about it, even though I had these dietary extremes, is that I'm always training, right? So I will never end up in a situation where I'm overeating and not training, right?
Yeah.
So although I may get fat, I may get to 235, it's a pretty strong fat.
Right.
Nice and cushioned. That's all that is.
Yeah, exactly, right? So lately it's been the ketogenic diet. I really like that. I think that's going to stick around for quite a while. I think my inflammation levels are significantly lower on that style of a diet. And I even was like maintaining 235 on a ketogenic diet. Which most people use it to lose weight, right? But I was basically drinking butter and coconut oil and stuff. But I mean, I went from, being able to play basketball like maybe for 1 hour and then having like knee pain from like tendonitis, old stuff. And I went ketogenic for a month. I went to Louisiana and I played basketball 5 out of 8 days. And I played 2 hours each time, and I was almost catching an alley-oop at 235 without any knee pain.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm sold on the anti-inflammatory properties. I'm sold on the joint lubrication from all the fat. I'm sold on that diet.
Yeah, I think people really underestimate the importance of fat in a diet.
Yeah, what's been vilified, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, there's obviously, well, I don't even know. I shouldn't say it, obviously. But the fat really does get that. Like in carbs too, like, really, like you said, if you're really training hard, it's as long as you're eating things that have good dietary value, it's kind of hard to go wrong in a way.
I agree with that. I agree with that statement. I think that, the fad diet thing, and all of them have value without a doubt, and I think that you have to find the one that works for your individual metabolism, because there isn't like some kind of magic diet. And I have friends that are athletes who love the ketogenic, in particular ultra runners, who's pretty much as far away removed from arm wrestles as you can get, because they're training solely for endurance and cardiovascular versus strength. But I have friends that love it, so it doesn't surprise me that you're taking to it. And the intermittent fasting that you mentioned, there's real value to that too. There's actually science behind it. I mean, fasting for 24 hours does replenish your white blood cells. It's almost like pressing a reset button on your immune system. So, I mean, I think that people have had success with that. And, I think it's interesting to me that that's something that you focus on. I mean, we were talking about Dave a minute ago. He's very diet focused as well. And I think that's an aspect that most arm wrestlers do not pay attention to, especially people who are not worried about making a certain weight. You see a lot of people stuffing the hamburgers and that kind of thing. But to be considered serious athletes, you have to take your diet seriously as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can eat things and my elbows swell up, or they get completely inflamed, right? So if you do stuff like this, right, you have to stop, right? You have to at least be conscious of it and say, yeah, I ate all this sugar. My elbows feel like bowling balls. This is probably not good, right? But I would bet the average diet is so poor that people can't even distinguish good from bad. It's like bad and then a little less bad. Mm-hmm. They don't know it's bad. People assume you have to have knee problems, that your back has to hurt, your elbows have to hurt,
right,
when it's not always true.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, if you do something long enough, it becomes normal, right? So I wonder how many people feel bad all the time and they just don't even know they feel bad.
Well, they just pop ibuprofen all day. Okay, and so they asked about supplements, right?
Yes.
I mean, I've probably taken almost, every supplement, recommended by like Charles Poliquin or T Nation. Maybe not every, maybe like 60% of them. No pro hormones and stuff like that. I'm really scared about livers and kidneys and that sort of damage. But I mean, like regular stuff, I'll use creatine if I'm going into like an event, right? I would use it year round, but I'm kind of lazy.
No, sounds like it.
Yeah, I'm just super routine, right? So if it's not in the routine, I won't do it. So creatine, acetyl L-carnitine, that kind of stuff. I like glucose disposal agents like ALA, cinnamon, chromium, these kinds of things, right? Managing blood sugar, right? Usually helps me cut weight, stuff like that. What else? Stuff like that. I mean, like simple sports supplements, right?
Yeah.
Nothing too crazy.
But you do take them. Like some people don't take them.
Oh, yeah,
at all.
yeah. I do take supplements. I mean, even if they don't even work.
Yeah.
Right? Even if it's just a placebo, like, oh man, I've got this pill, I'm going to train really hard this week, it's worth the money.
Yeah.
If I got to pay $20 for this bottle that's going to last me a week, right, and I train harder that week, for me it's worth it.
Yeah,
understood.
I don't have kids or anything like that, so I mean, Yeah, I'll spend the money on these on fake pills and stuff like that. And
I think that's a legitimate argument. I mean, really, the placebo effect is a real thing, and if you find something that triggers it in you, you should use it. I mean, it goes the same for every kind of mystical treatment out there, from Reiki to chakra cleansing that people do. I mean, if it works for you, fuck it, go for it. You know what I mean? All right, I got a flood of questions over here. I'm trying to sift through them for
Do
you.
you want to touch on supplements?
Yeah, well, I would love for you to touch on supplement because, as you know, this is John's favorite topic, and he really insists that we bring steroids up in every show. So I think we should use this moment right here in time and discuss it at length.
Yeah, I guess I mean, to each his own. Do whatever you want, right? I just wish I knew like there was a register of people on drugs, right? That way I at least know. Like if I lose, it's not because I'm not working hard enough. It's because this guy is on drugs and he's working hard. I'm not discrediting his work, right? But I want to know, right? Am I just an inferior person, or am I not training hard enough, right? If another guy shows up, and he's natural, right? Let's say Rob Vigent. Let's say Rob Vigent's natural, right? He probably is. Well, we don't know. We'll never know, right? He'll say yes. We never know. And he beats me, and I know he's natural. He's not on the log, right? I know that I need to either be training harder, or I need to maybe consider that Rob's just a superior male, right, in this sport. Bigger hands, longer arms, smarter, stronger, whatever, right? That's the confusing portion about the steroids. It's just, I mean, I take it seriously. Some people, they may not ever change anything. They'll just go to the tournament. They lose to a natural guy, doesn't change anything. Lose to a drug user, doesn't change anything. If I lose to a natural guy, you better believe I'm going back to the drawing board.
Right.
Because in my mind, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing to be the best.
Right.
Right. So I think that would be interesting. I mean, that'll never happen. This is all hypothetical, right? So that's one thing. Again, doesn't really bother me. What bothers me a lot of times are the people that just do it wrong, right? I think if I did drugs, I would just be so much better at it, right? I mean, everyone's taking like bodybuilding drugs. They're getting all big. They're getting swollen, right? Maybe they're stronger. Maybe they're more aggressive. But, okay, now they have to cut a whole bunch of weight because they put on a bunch of useless mass, right? Or they're holding a ton of water. They look like, not that it matters, but they look like crap, and they perform like crap. So what's the benefit? Right? So that kind of bothers me, right? And so when you look at what Rustem and Gennady and some of these guys got caught with at WAF Worlds, it's not what our guys are taking, right? We're Americans, so we want to look good at the beach and the gym to be cool on Facebook. So we take drugs to be big.
Right.
Makes no sense to me, right? And I mean, maybe it makes sense if you're Mike Aiello and you do calendars and all this, and you have a different hobby. But if you're just an arm wrestler that goes to the gym, right, and you go home and you go to work, no, this makes no sense whatsoever, right? So these guys get on drugs, they get all big, they get all swollen, then they get pumped up in the tournaments because the juice, what is it, Trenbolone I was reading? One guy was like, I stand up out of my bed and my back gets a pump. How can that be good for arm wrestling? You stand up and you get a back pump.
Probably not going to lend itself towards endurance.
If I was on juice, I'd be like a ripped to shreds 175. I'd wear long sleeve shirts. Everyone would think I was sick. They would say Herman lost 70 pounds, but I'd be just as strong as ever. That's how I would do drugs, right? And that stuff exists.
If you're gonna do
that's
it,
my problem with drugs is people doing it wrong, doing it too early, right? So basically, you're a new guy. You're here. You use drugs, and you get there. I want to get here, and then use drugs. And then get there.
Yeah, so what you're saying is you want to tap your potential and then supplement that.
Right? If I ever do it,
of course.
That's how it's going to be. I'm going to wait till I'm so good that no one will believe I'm clean, and then I'm going to use drugs. Really piss everybody off.
Well, I mean, I like that attitude because you're right. I mean, a lot of people use it as a shortcut instead of doing the hard work to see how far they can get. They just jump right to the drugs, and I think you're right. They don't know what they're doing. They make a lot of mistakes.
Why do drugs to just be average in the sport?
Yeah,
go be great, then use it and become amazing. Be so great it's something that no one's ever seen before.
Well, to be honest with you, yeah, right. And to be honest with you, Herman, it's because for the most part, it's what we've been talking about this whole show, which is the work that gets put in, right?
It's the work.
I mean, steroids are a goddamn magic drug if you can work hard enough with it. And I'm telling you right now, is what we've been talking about with overtraining and all that kind of stuff. Who the hell believes in overtraining who's on steroids?
Exactly. Why are steroid users complaining on Facebook about anything?
I can't imagine it.
I'm the one that should be complaining because I have to cut and get stronger and not fall into a depression because my testosterone levels crash.
Right.
I got real problems. I mean, within arm wrestling. Within arm wrestling.
I mean, that's that's something I really, especially the last couple of years, I do not understand. There should like the word overtraining should be like complete fantasy when it comes to a steroid user.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. All right, I got to read this stuff from Derek Smith since he is your upcoming opponent and it's funny. And I just like people's train of thought sometimes when they post questions on YouTube. He says three things here. Number one, how scared of me is Herman? That's my question. Also, ask Herman how he got his legs so built up as an arm wrestler. And then he follows up with please.
That's nice.
I love it, man. I love this guy.
It's kind.
I love this guy. First a little shit talking, but seriously, how'd you get your legs so big? Could you please help me out here? This is great.
Well, he's being facetious because my legs aren't big.
I know that.
Yeah. So, well, as a black man, I'm not going to have big calves, period. But I can jump high. So, I mean, there's nothing I can do to fix that. I'm always going to jump high. My calves will always be small. That's just the end of that story. And I mean, I'm not scared of Derek, but I'm also not going to take him lightly.
Smart.
I've beaten Derek every time we've pulled, I think, except for this past December in Bakersfield. I had a tough match with Michael Voss, and I had a tough match with Hoffman, and then Derek was sitting there looking pretty, and he cleaned me up pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to take him lightly, and I mean, my goal is to it's a team challenge. We have 8 matches, so some guys from my team versus guys from his team, all super match format, challenge match format. And my goal is to beat Derek so bad that his team quits.
Oh.
I have to beat Derek to help my team. It's the first match. We got to start it off on the right note. So it's more about helping my team compared to beating Derek. That's the
Fair
second.
enough.
It's very noble of you to make it bigger than yourself.
Yes, it's
Always.
I agree.
It's always big.
It's actually altruistic. I think it's impressive.
I'm an engineer for an oil company, right? So I'm not just fixing this piece of equipment. I'm supplying the world with crude oil, right? So that they can power their homes.
I just want to be the first person to personally. I want to be the first person to personally thank you for that, Herman. And it's running my air conditioner right now. I'm appreciative of that. So.
You're welcome.
Philippe is a guy who pulls down in Connecticut. He used to pull with John. He's
I know that kid. That kid's bad.
Yeah, he is a badass. I agree. He's getting better too. He's got some questions for you. First one is a training one. He's agreeing with you guys about curls, first of all, earlier on. Then he said he's working on one-arm pull-ups with additional weight. He wants to know if you think those have any value. And then secondly, what did you think of Scott Mendelson? Do you think he has a future? Do you think he's like a flash in the pan type guy? That sort of thing.
So the one-arm... Wait, where did we start? One-arm pull-ups?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. I could do it 2 years ago. I can't do them now, and I'm much better. Right? So it's a general strength movement. If you can somehow do it in a way that lines up with your table form or technique, there's carryover, right? Or if you can just get close, you can probably condition that strength to the table. So I don't know if I would spend a lot of time on it, right? But who knows, right? I do pull-ups in my house. If I was so strong that I could do sets of 5 on one-arm pull-ups, then I would probably just do one-arm pull-ups all the time. So it's really about loading, right? So if a one-arm pull-up is in that 3-rep range, 5-rep range, or they're just easy, you can do 10 plus. Why not do them all the time, right? I mean, at that strength level, he probably can do, 40 or 50 pull-ups without a problem, right? So that's a waste of time for him to do those pull-ups.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, I figure pull-ups, I started doing them a few years in, and they weighted pull-ups became very easy for me, and they built very quickly for me in the sport. And I feel like it's kind of like rope climbing, whereas I never did any rope climbing at all, and then I just tried it one day and I was really good at it. I really attribute it from my arm wrestling strength that I was able to do rope climbs.
Yeah, sure.
So if my arm wrestling got me stronger at rope climbing, then there probably would be some carryover to it. Now, is it like direct, or would I have to change my setup in order to maximize the benefit? Who knows?
Yeah, I didn't train the one arm pull up. I would try every once in a while. I could never do it, and I think I was working on side pressure, so my chest got pulled in a little bit stronger. And then one day I just did a one arm pull up. Right? I mean, it was never something I worked on, right? And I was light at the time, so it kind of lined up. But yeah.
And how about Scott Mendelson? I saw the video of you pulling him online, and it seemed like you handled him relatively easily.
Yeah, Scott's about as strong as any new guy I've ever pulled, right? It's all going to come down to him, right? Is he going to do the training? Is he going to take the direction, right? Or is he going to go learn everything and try to do it himself? That's what's going to determine everything. He also has probably a ton of injuries from powerlifting, right? I don't know how that's going to affect him. I mean, I can hear like all his joints and stuff cracking, as we're pulling, right? There's a lot of grinding there, right? Wow. So, I mean, I don't see why he couldn't be good. I mean, he's got far more potential than I have. Right? It's just all about him and what and his current situation, right? Does he have 5 years to actually dedicate to it, right? Is he going to seriously take those directions from Vosgen? Do this, and follow it to a T, right? Will his body hang on for the next 5 years?
Right.
I don't know, right? That's really what it comes down to, right? So, I don't know. It's like with anyone, right? There's always some freak someone found. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, we found this 160-pound freak. Blah blah blah. We found a 220-pound freak. Those guys don't even show up. They disappear, right? So Scott Mendelson, it may disappear, right? Mm-hmm. Especially with someone like him who already has something going on, right? I mean, I did arm wrestling because I was bored. I didn't have anything else to do, right? Mm-hmm. Now I'm hooked, right? Something may happen, and he might be touring the world for powerlifting shows or something, making actual money, right? He may just disappear. Right? I don't know how he's training. Is he really training every week? And even if you're on the table once a week, is he doing arm wrestling exercises every day? I don't know. Right?
Yeah, I figure whenever
Scott Warren found a 165-pound guy that could beat me in a hook right off the street. Right?
Really?
Don't happen to that guy. That's what he told me. He's like, this guy could beat Herman Stevens in the hook.
Oh,
right?
Shit.
So, yeah, right. That guy didn't pan out.
Yeah, whenever I hear, people talk about Scott Mendelson, my first thing is well, as long as like you said, his body holds up and he's dedicated. I mean, the guy already became the best bench presser on the planet for a little while, anyway.
Yeah.
So he's obviously got some kind of ability to line things up for himself in order to dedicate some time and some effort to something. If he really wanted to do it for arm wrestling, I don't really see why he couldn't, as long as everything else holds up.
Yep. Can he learn the technique? That's probably the biggest question.
Right.
And that is not a given. I don't care. I don't care if he is committed for 5 years. There's nothing that says, oh yeah, you do this 5 years, you will learn sufficient technique to compete at a national or even a world level. That is not a given whatsoever. Mm-mm. The strength is a given. I know plenty of guys that are 20-year guys, just dead strong in these spots, but I mean they can't get to those spots. They don't know the setup technique. They don't know multiple moves. So that's not a given. And that's probably the largest question mark.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. You never know, even meeting someone brand new, you just never know their potential for learning angles and learning how to get there and all that stuff. You definitely can.
Right. And no offense to powerlifters, but I'm willing to bet arm wrestling's far more complicated than any of the power lifts.
Yeah, I mean, it's another martial art, really. I mean, there's different directions, there's different styles. You have to combat another thinking thing. That's the one thing that's different with weightlifting, powerlifting, and arm wrestling, is that it's a strength sport, but there's a thinking thing on the other side of you that's attacking you.
Yep.
There's not a weight that's just pushing down. Now,
yeah, it's completely different.
Yeah, you might show up and be able to lift 10 pounds less one day than another day because you're a little beat up or whatever. But there are times when you show up 6 months later and someone's learned something new, and you don't have an answer for it right yet.
Yeah.
Just because that
No,
guy can think about it.
I think you're right, John, when you said martial art, because it's amazing how frequently I think of jujitsu when we're doing the various hand positions. Because you change a small thing, as you said, it can make a huge difference until people learn how to adjust to it. It is a power sport. I think it does come back to that at the end of the day. But, I mean, you can get some tricks on people. You know, if you can come up with some stuff and figure it out before they do, there's angles that you can attack that they're not ready for. And, you know, you suddenly do a press when you've been top rolling for 5 years, you're going to beat some people until they adjust. And that's not something you're going to encounter when it comes to weights. The weights are going to be exactly the same every single time you lift them, and it's going to come down to your current conditioning and injuries and all that sort of thing. And, of course, your commitment and your dedication to the sport. But arm wrestling requires all of those things. Plus, you have to get into that mind game of the person across the table, and not even one person. You know, in a tournament, it's 10, 11 people that you're going to have to out-strategize as well as be stronger than.
Exactly.
What do you think of Scott Warren? Have you pulled him, Herman?
I think the last time I pulled Scott Warren was the week before my Vendetta match with Alan Ford.
Okay.
I went to the Buena Park World Amateur Championships in the Open or Coaches Division. And my plan was not to compete at all because, one, I had a right-hand match the week after, right? But Scott Warren, the funny thing is, the night before, he was trying to punk other amateurs on Facebook, saying that he's going to cream this guy, he's going to beat you, and he's going to do this, and he's going to be he's going to win a California state title or whatever the title is at Buena Park. And that night, Friday, before the tournament, I decided I was pulling left-handed, which is his class, right? And so the next day, I went, I pulled left-handed, and rolled right through him. Right. So that's the last time I pulled Scott Warren. And then since then, that was pretty easy, really easy, right? Since then, I think he commented on something from the UAL event where I pulled Hoffman, Chuck, Mac, and he said that he would beat all of us left-handed in the hook, right? So I thought that was pretty interesting, and it could not be further from the truth. Chuck just destroyed him at some challenge match they had in like Oregon or something. So, I mean, he talks all this crap and then he goes and then Chuck destroys him. So imagine what Hoffman will do or what I'll do.
Now you brought up something that was kind of interesting, that you didn't want to pull right-handed because you had a match the day or the week before after. What are your thoughts on rest before a tournament?
Oh, I could have totally pulled that day, especially as a local event.
Right.
I just didn't want to risk anything.
Yeah, I mean, like your basic plan for a big, something that's really important to you. What does your rest game look like?
So it depends on how I'm feeling. But I mean, I'll usually train almost up to the last minute, right? Not unlike Todd Hutchings, right? So when Todd says something, I usually think, okay, well, maybe I should at least try this, or I could probably do it.
Right.
Right. Todd's a man. Right? I mean, he's pretty special, but he's a human being, so I could probably at least try it. So typically I'll train up to the last minute, especially if it's a local event. I probably won't change anything.
Yeah.
Right? I might just continue my same, whether it's bulk volume or it's super high intensity, I may not change anything. But if I'm going into the last 2 weeks and I've got some inflammation building up, right, I'll probably start cruising. So it's situational, but I prefer not to do much rest.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. For a lot of local stuff, I pull a lot of times during the week, and if there's people available, I'll pull a Thursday and then pull a tournament on Saturday. I mean, I do it anyway. It's not unusual, so I don't really see the huge benefit. The only thing I do kind of, for something that's really important to me, I do take a little bit more time off just because I kind of want to be, and it might not even be true, I just want to be the best version of I can be. And I don't really necessarily always think that the way I train really allows me to be the best I can be. It allows me to build the best I can, but maybe not perform the best I can. So yeah. I've been playing.
Right. You just have to prioritize those events, right?
Exactly.
If you peaked for every event you did, you would never train.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it.
Right? So that's how I look at it. So I have no problem, training year round, hitting all these local tournaments and peaking once during the year. That's perfectly fine with me. So yeah, I prefer just to keep things going, especially if I'm in a groove. I'd rather just keep hitting it.
Yeah, because that's when things slow down, right? When you have those little tweaks and those little twinges, and something just not feeling quite right. But if everything feels good, like especially if it's a local thing, this whole 2 weeks of rest for, I mean, you're kind of taking some of the fun out of it too, right?
Oh, exactly. There's no way I'm going to sit around the house for like 2 weeks chilling, right?
Yeah.
And if anything, right? So I don't have an elite arm wrestler to train with, right? So I have no like idea of my setup. I mean, I go into events completely clueless, right? So on top of that, right, I would hate to be off the table for 2 weeks and just be ice cold, stiff,
Rusty.
and then also be kind of unaware of my standing right on the table. So it would just be a double negative at that point. So I'm trying to always be on the table, and then the last week I'm probably if I'm not on the table with one of my guys or something, I'm going to be on the table by myself, just going through all my motions, right?
So do you believe in lightweight work for recovery, or you don't, or anything like that, or?
Yeah, I do lightweight work, and then more so recently, since I've been training a lot with my teammates, I've had someone at my house basically 4 or 5 days a week. I do more recovery if it's not for me, but for them.
Yep.
Right. And I think Bob Brown gave me some advice to do like 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute sets, that sort of thing. So I started doing time sets. So that helps blood flow and all that.
Yeah, for me, that's when I start talking about rest and peaking. That's where, when I really start to, cruise, like you said. About 10 days, 9 days out, for me, it really becomes more about recovery, more about movement, making sure I just feel good. Not doing anything that's really going to tax me too bad. But, I mean, we tax each other. We tax ourselves all the time. Like, a lot of guys might think that, people, this is a lot of work, but this is what we do. It's not a lot of work. It might be a lot of work to some people, but to arm wrestlers, it really shouldn't be. It should be, this is just what we do. I just wonder if people are, that's one thing we haven't been asking a lot of guests is their rest.
Well, it's a mentality question too, John. Like both of you guys are talking about, I would say, from my experience, is a rare mentality because, people enter tournaments, they want to win, they want to collect the trophies, they want to be able to post on Facebook about it. So they're going to be resting 2 weeks for every tournament or a week or what have you, whatever their personal strategy is. But the reality is you're not going to progress if you do that. So what you guys are suggesting, I think what a lot of us are trying to emulate is you train. Exactly. Delay your gratification. Pick 1 or 2 tournaments a year that you really want to focus on, and maybe rest a little bit more for those 2, but otherwise keep working straight through.
Or here's an idea. Just get so strong that you can show up to the local tournament at 60% with busted up wrists and elbows and then still win. That way, you have your cake and you eat it too.
Yeah.
Right? But you have to be willing to delay your gratification and to work hard and be patient just to get to that point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you spend a lot of time in the amateurs, Herman? This gentleman, Craig Ruiz, would like to know.
So I started in Louisiana. My first event was March 2010. I competed in the novice classes and the open classes. I won the novice stuff, and I won the left open, right? So done with novice. And again, novice is like a specific thing, right? Not every area has that. That's like super beginner. And then the next 2 or 3 tournaments, from March, April, and May, they were all open. And then I went to California for an internship. I think I only did open at the first one, and then I did amateur and open at UAL 1, and that was maybe June 2010. And then after that, it's been all open ever since. So, I mean, that's my whole amateur experience. Mm-hmm. And part of that is because Louisiana really didn't have amateur. And part of that is I'm kind of hard-headed, right? I don't think you could have paid me to be an amateur, right, after those couple events.
Yeah, I don't understand the mentality of people who they want to stay novice or amateur for longer.
Well, think about what happened at WAL just this last couple of weeks when we're going to have some of these guys on Friday, but I saw a lot of commentary. I don't know all these guys, but there was a lot of commentary on Facebook and in other places about that many of the people in the amateur class had been long-term pros.
Really?
Okay, yeah. So, I probably shouldn't name names, but Ron Bath's son was in the class. I don't know if it's Ryan Bath or something.
Mm-hmm. Sounds familiar.
That doesn't make any sense, right? Now, I don't know. Maybe he grew up with Ron, and Ron trained for 30 years, and this guy never touched an arm wrestling tape. I highly doubt it, right? So I don't know. I don't think that's right? And I don't accept the excuses of, oh, well, maybe I took some time off, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So what if I take the next 2 years off and then WAL still is going on? Do I get to go win a can of Coke at the WAL Amateur Championships? I don't know. I think people might have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I would definitely like to enter the amateurs. If they were giving away Coca-Cola, that would be a pretty good motivation for me to enter that class.
Sounds refreshing.
I would do it to prove a point, though. Right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I always thought, just in life in general, like, I couldn't wait to be able to drive. I couldn't wait to move out. Like, I don't understand the wanting to stay as a novice. I mean, I know my novice career was 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
And I wasn't ready. I just got my ass kicked for a few more years.
How you define some of these things, right? So I think there probably is, right, a lifetime amateur guy, right? And we probably should be okay with that to an extent, right? You know, so, right, I don't go play basketball with Kobe Bryant, right? I go to the rec gym, right? There needs to be a place for those types of arm wrestlers, right? And that's okay. Yeah. But, you know, some of these guys are not lifers. They just hang out in the amateurs. They're not even trying. It's not like they don't have the potential. They're just not even trying. Right. Or they're just trying to be really good amateurs. Some of those guys at WAL were juiced out of their minds. I was like, man, this guy, not only would he whip my ass, he'd beat me on the table too. I was like, man, I don't want to hook with these amateurs. You know what I mean? So, like, some of that stuff doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
We have the rule, it's like a rule of thumb up here in the Northeast, that if you're in the amateurs, once you've won 3 tournaments, you're a pro. And most of us are not ready to be pros at that point, but you also shouldn't be hanging around the amateurs where you're kicking everybody's ass, you know? So I think that you should have some sort of rule of thumb for it. I think it took me like eight months to win the 3 tournaments on both hands. And, you know, I'm getting my ass kicked a lot of times in the opens by, you know, like Vigent and freaking Bill Sinks and all those guys we have in the 198s up here. But I personally like that. I would rather everybody showed up to every tournament so you could say, okay, I'm 10th in the Northeast. At least I know because these 9 guys just kicked my ass, rather than, you know, trying to collect trophies and all that kind of stuff. But on the other hand, I guess if you have a mantle, you got to fill it up with something.
Well, I throw all my trophies away anyway, so you don't have to fill it up at all. But I mean, like, and you'll never get that, right? I mean, I think between the UAL, WAL, TV, and all that stuff, you'll never get those local tournaments the way they used to be. I mean,
I guess so.
It is what it is, right? You'll probably have a tier of pro-only guys, right? Because we don't make any money, no real money. So that's what's going to happen, right? I mean, I haven't seen Tom Nelson. Tom Nelson's probably pulled 1 local event, I think, since the Game of Arms. Right, and I mean that's fine. It's his own. It's his prerogative. He can do whatever he wants. You know.
Has he been pulling at all anywhere? I mean, he obviously wasn't at WAL, but
he pulled at the WAL event in December. Right, he beat Hoffman in a 1-on-1 match, and then I think he pulled 1 match in the Open and quit for good reason. I know mentally he's probably burnt. You know, there's no point in trying to pull in the Open tournament. But other than that, I mean, I don't think he's done anything in a long time, and I think he's taken the year off. You know, I know he's had like a hernia problem and stuff, but I don't know. It just seemed like arm wrestling was more fun when I moved here in 2012. You know, you could go to a tournament and there's Luke and Randy Weaver and Kenny and Tom and Eric Waffel and all that stuff. You know.
Yeah.
Well, that is the problem when you start to have, you know, a significant amount of money. I mean, it's not like Kobe Bryant money, but it's certainly more than arm wrestlers are used to. Suddenly, those guys stop showing up at the tournaments we're used to seeing them at because they want to, you know, like we were just speaking about, they're saving their, you know, action for those 1 or 2 WAL events so they can win, or at least potentially win 10 or 20 grand. So it does, you know, it does take away some of the fun of the local tournaments. You don't see the big guys as much anymore. I mean, it's true up here too. So, but I mean, it is what it is at this point. You know, we'll see what's going to happen.
Things change. In a couple of years, it could be all different again.
Yeah, it'll probably just go back to the way it was.
Well, you know, the thing is you get. I actually think you're right, Herman, because, you know, when you got like a millionaire or billionaire angel investor like the WAL has, they still want to make money. You know, they're not going to keep, you know, throwing money away for endless numbers of years. They got to pay to put these shows on ESPN. They're paying everybody, you know, whatever, 10 or 20 grand for winning. So it's a lot of money that's going into it. Plus the refs, the tables, the people they have hanging around, everything else that they have to pay for. It's a lot of money that's flying out, and they can't be bringing in, that much to replace what they're spending. So it's a question of how long are they willing to stick with it.
Correct. And that's what confused me about all of this, is that it was WAL's here. Steve Kaplan is a knight in shining armor. He's here to help everybody. No, he's here to make money.
Of course.
He's not a charity, right? He's not, he may be a nice guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this arm wrestling operation, this business, that's not him being nice to help the arm wrestling community, right? He doesn't really give a damn about arm wrestling.
Yeah, he might not hate us, but he wants to make money.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is completely reasonable. I think he's like, wow, this. He probably watched Game of Arms like, wow, this is awesome. I can't believe nobody's tried to turn this into professional league. These guys are characters, etc., etc., and all that's true. But there's characters everywhere you go in every sport and every walk of life. That doesn't mean we want to watch them.
Exactly. If he cared, he wouldn't have personally tried to pressure me to sign a contract when I told him I didn't have time to read it.
Good point.
This is like the perfume salespeople at the mall, type of stuff.
I gotcha.
Well, the contract thing is bullshit. And we've been trying to get Steve to come on the show. He hasn't answered the emails yet. I hope he does come on because you can't have a one-way contract like that. If you're gonna hold people and say you can't be televised anywhere, then you have to pay them. You got to give them a salary. We're going to pay $30,000 a year to only pull with us. Then fine. Now you really have professional arm wrestlers.
He just took away a freedom for me, right? He just restricted me, right? I can't go to, Bill Collins' tournament because Bill might be streaming it.
Right. And you're right. He did take away freedom because you can't really pull WAL now, except local tournaments because you're not willing to sign a contract. And a lot of people, Tim Breslin feels the same way. And there's plenty of guys that, Corey Miller's not going to WL. And if you can make a list of people who are at Vazgen, who are excellent pullers and at the top of our, the weight classes in the United States who are not willing to go down that road. And I think it's completely legitimate. And, so you have this gap that needs to be bridged. And because of what you said earlier, with Steve he might like arm wrestling, but it's not like he's a guy who's been arm wrestling for a long time and suddenly got rich and is like, this is awesome. Now we have an opportunity to turn our sport into the NFL. He's a guy trying to make money. So his motivation is not going to be strong to go collect those guys that are missing because he knows that the American public has no fucking clue who any of us are. And they don't care if Corey Miller's not there. They just want to watch the guys that are on TV. So he doesn't have a strong motivation to try to, get all of the best arm wrestlers in the States on his show.
Correct. And do you know how to value the contract? Right? So if you're Todd Hutchings, that contract may be worth $20,000 to you because in Todd's mind, he can win both hands. Right? At minimum, it's worth $10,000 to Todd Hutchings because he's definitely going to win right-handed. Do you know what that contract is worth to everyone else? It's worth one lottery ticket. You might be able to win some money, right? And it means you might be able to win 10 because there's no way you're going to win right. You know what I mean? So for me, when I look at that paper and I'm like, man, should I sign this? It is a lottery ticket to maybe pull Todd Hutchings, which to me is the only thing that matters. The money doesn't matter. It's Todd. It's his titles. It's his ranking. That's what matters. And for me, there's no guarantee that I'll even pull Todd.
Right.
Even if I win the whole thing, there's no guarantee that I will pull Todd.
It's true.
Right. So for me, it's basically worthless.
Well, I don't know. We'll see what happens, man. I feel like I said, I don't know how it's not a sustainable model the way it's currently set up. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
I hope it's not sustainable. If it is sustainable, then I'm never going to arm wrestle again.
What about the WAF? What about world titles? Is that something? What's your final goal? Derek wants to know.
I don't know. Actually, I've never set a goal for arm wrestling. Right? I started in 2010, and at that point I was like, man, I'll never beat Ray Hendricks. Then it was like I'll never beat Craig. Then it was like I think before that it was like I'll never be top 10, or the only way I can be top 10 is if I'm on drugs. Right? And then you pass all these marks, and you just like, what's next? I basically decided that I loved arm wrestling. I enjoyed doing it, and I was going to train 2 and 3 times a day forever, right? And I think that's what allows me to make the kind of progress that I make, because I'm not driven by a deadline. I'm not driven by a tournament. I'm not driven by a title. I'm just driven on progress, right? And the progress is getting or being the best that I can be. So I can do that even if I don't pull a tournament this year or next year or in 2018, right? So who knows? Maybe I never win a world title. Maybe I never do anything, right? Maybe I beat someone in 2025, or I beat Todd on his deathbed or something. I mean,
would you like to travel overseas to pull those guys like at the World Championship?
So I am incredibly lazy. I don't like setting up flights. I don't like setting up hotels. I don't like spending money, right? So that basically means that I don't do anything. And that's not just traveling for arm wrestling. I just don't do anything. I stay at home and I train.
Play guitar.
And I play guitar. Well, my band played our first show a month and a half ago.
Very nice.
So that's kind of the problem. I'm more likely to do something last minute. It's like, oh, I'm bored. Let's fly to Poland, right? That's more likely to happen. The problem is that with the WAF system, I would have had to go on to Unified Nationals, right? Then I would have had to, register in advance to go to WAF and stuff like that. So for me, it's a personality flaw probably that's keeping me from going to something.
Well, the USAF Nationals are going to be in Nevada next year.
I went to 2015.
Yeah, and then the Worlds is going to be in Budapest in Hungary next year, which is supposed to be an amazing place to visit. So that might motivate you.
Yeah, maybe. My girlfriend wants to travel, so maybe I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
There you go. Plan ahead.
So do you have a similar?
I'll have her plan ahead.
That's actually perfect. She can get the flights and the hotels and probably even register for you. All you have to do is show up in Nevada and win.
Exactly. Yeah. Hopefully Michael Todd won't show up the next year.
Well, you could pull 98s, man. We need some 98 badasses at Worlds.
Not only did I go to Nationals and lose, but Michael Todd pulled 2 20s.
I know.
I didn't game plan for that. I could have at least studied the King's move and tried to work on some techniques.
Right.
Yeah. That's tough, man. That's a tough match right there.
So what do you think about the King's move?
I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. I guess it depends on what's actually going on inside the elbow, right? So some people say, oh, it's not on my bone, it's just my muscle, but right before the lock or whatever. I don't know. I can't x-ray his elbow. I don't know what's going on. That's really the kicker, right? Now, I've seen guys who are not Michael Todd or Crazy George who have full range of motion just go straight armbar. Right. Now that's just wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you just your arm is just straight and there's no doubt whatsoever, I don't think it makes any sense. They do it in an act of desperation as they are about to lose, right? And they won't win from that position, right? But they will ruin your day, right? Now, some would say, well, it's the other arm wrestler's fault for continuing to pull, right? You can probably foul and take a restart or something like that. But I don't know. I think it's all on the straight arm guy. It's lame, right? They need to stop. Just take your loss, right? I take my losses. Take your loss.
Yeah, and I think with some of that, the shoulder below the table in a losing position needs to be enforced a little better too, because if you really do go straight armed, it's very tough to stay even in a neutral position with your arm straight and your shoulder above the table. So, some of that has to be looked at too, for sure.
Yep, it's on the referees, and if it's happening at a pro event, right, the referee has to be willing to shut the match down in the finals, regardless of what it looks like.
Yeah, and that's tough on the refs.
Yep, because you don't want to be that guy. Right. You don't want to be that guy that ruined the WAL finals, and I don't think we had any matches like that this year, but you don't want to be that guy that ruins a UAL final or a PAL final because of fouling the guy out.
That's one of the reasons I love Leonard, because he doesn't give a shit. He'll foul anybody out at any moment.
Yep.
Yeah, because you really don't want to be the other guy, too, who lets all that go.
Right.
You really don't want to be that guy. Because
I'd much rather be Leonard than the other guy. Because then you get to a point where do you start drawing the line? Well, I know this guy, but I don't know him, so I'm going to let him do it, but I'm not going to let this other guy do it, that kind of stuff. And
you
see
draw
what
the
happens.
line at the rule book.
Right, that's where you draw the line. But not everybody does that, as we know.
Yeah, so then the question becomes, okay, so someone like Michael Todd has all these disabilities from arm wrestling, right? Does he just get retired?
Right.
It's like, Michael, you're 38, you still got 10 years of pulling in you, but because of the way your arms are all jacked up, you can't pull anymore, right? So then, or maybe he has to follow the rules, or someone like that would have to follow the rules and just be okay with a decreased level of performance.
Yeah.
Or you have a disabled King's Move class.
Right. But I will say this, Michael's been above the table for, what, 2
Absolutely.
years now?
Yes.
I mean, he took all the criticism and then went back to the drawing board, right? And I think he beat Pushkar all above the table, I think. Right? He fought Trubin all above the table. So, there's probably no argument that anyone should give Michael unless they know that he's resting on his bone, and we don't know that.
Right. You just can't.
How do you think he's going to do against Siplenkov next month, or actually in 2 weeks?
Next week.
Next week? No, he's on the 22nd.
Oh, wait, you're right, yeah.
We're next week.
Apologize.
Yeah, get us straight.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Michael's style is just very bad for Dennis, right? However, what if Dennis doesn't attack and Dennis just sits there and does the same thing?
Right.
Does the world blow up?
I don't know. Can you do that?
They just pull until one of them falls asleep.
Yeah, do we have a 30-minute match where they just kind of sit there waiting for the other to attack? I don't know. Dennis has been out for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know what that does to someone of his caliber, right? Between his trainers and maybe he still does strongman, with his supplements, right? Maybe the layoff doesn't do anything.
Right.
For all I know, maybe he was hurt before the layoff, and now he's even better because he's injured. You know what I mean? Sometimes guys come back even better.
Sure.
So I don't know. Another thing is part of it's going to come down to what Michael shows up. I was kind of disappointed with the Trubin match. I expected the Michael that pulled Pushkar, but I think we got the Michael that pulled Devin, which is not terrible, right? But it's a less in shape Michael.
Right.
Right.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, the Michael that shows up is the one that pulled Pushkar, except maybe a little bit heavier. A couple years more training, a few years more training. Mm-hmm. That's the Michael I want to see. Right?
I think he agrees with you, because when I was chatting with him at the Nationals, he basically said exactly what you said, Herman, which was that he was not where he wanted to be for the Trubin match, and that he was trying to get back to that place for Siplenkov. So hopefully we will see that.
Yeah, we talked about it at the UAL deal in Dallas.
Do you have an opinion on any of the other big matches going on?
Well, I think I'm probably going to be in Vazgen's corner for his match with Hristo. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be.
I don't know Hristo very well. We talked about
a little bit. He's strong. I've seen quite a few videos of him, but I think now he kind of does a King's Move kind of deal. Mm-hmm. Right now, I want to say him and Vazgen pulled, but I don't remember who won. I want to say.
I think Vazgen did, didn't he?
Yeah, Vazgen.
I don't know, but maybe maybe Vazgen won, but it kind of ruined Vazgen's day or something like that. Maybe I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping Vazgen wins that one. What's the other match? It's Tim Bresnan.
Yeah, it's Bresnan versus Saleyev, and Pushkar versus Trubin. And then I don't know if they ever announced an opponent for Zoloev, but so those are the other two big ones.
Yeah, so I think Tim's going to win easy. Right, I just think between his hand and his pronation, right, unless Dimitri completely jumps him, right, I think Tim's going to win. Mm-hmm. And then I think Trubin is going to destroy Andrei Pushkar, because Pushkar hasn't done anything different in the last 10 years.
That's true.
He does the same move over and over and over again. He breaks down at the same point over and over and over again. He loses the same way over and over again. He had a 1-minute match with Modestas Grigaitis, another big-handed top roller guy, maybe in 2010 or 2011. Modestas took his hand, and then Trubin just kind of did the same, side pressure hit. He just doesn't change anything, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, some would say, well, who are you to say that? He's a world champion, blah, blah, blah. But he just does. It's just the truth. He doesn't make adjustments, right? You saw it in the Devon match. Didn't make a single change. So,
oh, yeah, I think that's fair to say. I mean, you're not saying that he's not, for 99.9% of the planet, strong enough to just make that one move work.
yeah.
But he does do the same. He has one single lane, and for most people, it's just way too much.
I would even say he's somewhat of an underachiever in my book compared to what he could be. All right. I don't know him personally. I don't know if he's a smart guy or a not so smart guy. But if his hand is as good as everyone says it is, right? We all know how good his hit is. I mean, imagine if he just learned some sort of counter move,
right,
or something like that. I mean, I think it'd be crazy.
I definitely get what you're saying.
And I do totally agree with you. It's like he's actually been too dominant with that move for prior to running into Trubin, he was on quite a streak there. So I think he hasn't had the motivation to change anything up. So I hope that he's done some kind of secret work in somebody's basement. He's going to pull out some new stuff.
Correct. And then the thing is, right, so like Dave Chafee didn't do so well at A1 last year, right? He had a wrist injury. And you find out after the fact, right, these guys are banged up and stuff like that. With Pushkar, I don't think it has anything to do with injuries. He's always like this. So whereas I think Dave may be able to come back and do something different, but Dave may come back healed and do better at a future A1. That may never happen. Pushkar won't do anything different. It'll be exactly the same because his issues have not been injury related. They've all been technique related.
Gotcha.
Well, I think most people are saying what you're saying, that Trubin's going to smash him. I'm curious to see what's going to happen, man.
Yeah.
We're going to find out. We have a little Chris Gobby versus... Oh, by the way, I forgot to ask Chris's question. I got to ask this one because it was funny as hell.
It better be good.
It is funny. He wants to... Chris wants to know, Herman, who is your most intelligent Facebook friend who is also a colossal troll?
And Canadian.
I think that's got to be Chris Gobby.
So you just made his night.
Yeah.
Now,
we recently became best friends because we started trolling the same people.
Right.
Yeah, I noticed
yeah. I told Josh you guys are like the Steiner brothers.
All right, so who do you think's going to win between Chris and John?
Oh, I don't know because I haven't seen much video on either of them. Right? I think I remember seeing some of John's videos on like Arm TV, back in the day.
Yeah,
but I don't think
that's
I've seen
bad.
I don't think I've seen any recent footage of John. As far as I can tell from the trash talk, John's a top roller, maybe, or he's going to top roll, and then Chris is a hooker. So I honestly have no clue.
Yeah, it's going to be
No
fun.
clue whatsoever.
Yeah, definitely opposing styles, opposing body types. A bit taller, a bit bigger hand, longer arm. He's, basically, like you said before, jacked. He knows where he wants to go. I know where I want to go. That's for sure.
Yeah, so I'm scared of all the jacked guys. So I mean, if I saw Chris in person, I'd be like, "Oh crap, John's gonna get blown out."
Yeah, I'm not gonna look at him until
that's what happens when I see those jacked guys. I go, "Oh my goodness, this guy is so big. I'm about to get creamed."
Yeah.
And then their hand flops over.
Yeah, I'm not gonna look at him.
That to Chris also.
I'm not gonna look at him until after the match.
It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep. Yeah, I fly out next
So-
Thursday.
That's awesome, man. We'll have to go out for pancakes or something.
Ooh.
Ketogenic pancakes. They have to be ketogenic because you have to go on that diet now. It's
very
working for Herman,
Very
man.
important. I'm changing it today.
Herman, we've kept you on here for an hour and 40 minutes, man. I don't know if there's anything we forgot to cover that you want to talk about or what have you.
I don't know. I think I had some notes around here somewhere from Travis's interview.
Oh boy.
Oh, yeah. Let's get to that stuff. We can't let you go because I remember you.
Let's see if I can find these notes.
That's right. I remember you reached out to me after that. Like you were you were flamed up after that interview. A lot of people were. A lot of people got pissed off after Travis.
The first one?
Yeah, but it was so long ago. Maybe the notes don't even make sense. Right. So I think Travis maybe said something about payouts always going up, but then they dropped this year. I don't know. That's hard to believe. I can't believe he would even make that kind of comment. That payouts will always go up from this point on. That seems weird. People not going to WAL have to ask if they are worth a contract.
Right.
Who gives a damn about the contract? Because I just told you the contract isn't worth anything.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the contract worth? I think that's the real question, and it ain't worth shit. You know what I mean? Well, let me. If you want pictures on Facebook and little videos on Facebook and a shiny clean shirt, which I don't have any of, all mine are faded and dirty. Yeah, maybe signing that contract is worth it, right? And then this year maybe it's a little different, right? They'll do an episode for each weight class. Maybe you'll actually get some FaceTime on television.
Well, Derek Costa just asked on here how it feels to have your own shirt.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay. Oh shit.
We're going for a ride.
I just took you for a ride.
Here we go.
I'm getting motion sickness here.
So check this out. This is limited edition. There's not many of these.
Oh boy.
Right? I think I have one, and I think Derek has one. So you see that? Pullerville.com.
Yeah.
Right. All right. That's Pullerville.com. Go check out the videos.
Up. Yeah. There it is.
That's badass.
Yeah, Derek wears these shirts to tournaments.
Well, who wouldn't?
Yeah, they made it. Derek made it. I'm not that kind of guy that would make a shirt of myself.
No, you can't make it yourself, but you can sure as hell wear it when somebody else makes it for you.
Yeah, well, no, I don't wear it. I mean, that would really screw people up.
It's like
I think you should wear it.
It's like making your own nickname.
Totally wear that shirt at the next tournament, man. I would wear it.
Yeah, Derek's a pretty good guy. He's the last remaining stronghold of Pullerville. His brother quit. Fitzy quit. Derek's the last one, just still going. Let's see.
Well, did you hear about Travis's new league where he's going to pay the champion $500 a month until they get beaten?
Oh, I thought they got paid in watches.
Nope. He's saying he's going to pay $500 a month to the lightweight and the heavyweight champion until they get beaten.
Yeah, I listened to the interview. I mean, I guess it sounds cool. Everything comes down to schedules, right? How does his schedule line up with the Buena Park World Amateurs and the Nationals and the WAL and the other national, and then the random UAL event and the other nationals, right? So I don't know what the schedule looks like. I think there's one a couple hours from me in August or something. I mean, I'll go. I mean, I support just about everything,
right?
Especially if it's within 4 hours. There's probably not a tournament I haven't gone to. Within that sort of distance, unless they were just like overbooked or something, like tournaments back to back. But I support almost everything. I mean, I really enjoy arm wrestling. I enjoy coaching my guys. Right, I go to all their events. Right, there were tournaments that I have no intentions of going to. Right, and I find out last minute that someone's going, and I just go for the ride.
Right. Yeah, that's I think that's the best point you can make with this whole thing, with the different leagues, different contracts, all the bullshit. Is that nobody should really be in love with any league. They should just be in love with the sport, because that's what we all did. That's why we all got involved with it. That's why we're still involved with it. If we hated this thing, if we didn't like it, if we didn't love the sport, we would have quit because of the bullshit a long time ago.
Yep.
True. Very true.
Okay. Another comment from Travis. Right?
Okay.
Sorry.
He mentioned the people not coming because what was it? They were pussies, he said I was a pussy personally, right?
Oh,
or
Herman.
Being scared they're going to lose, or that they can't get second place or first place, right? Or that the rules aren't set up for them, right? At the same time, Travis said that when things aren't going his way or it's not being done in the fashion that he likes, he quits. He leaves. So he's speaking out of both sides of his mouth. So it's I'm a pussy if I don't like the conditions, but it's okay when he doesn't like the conditions and just hauls up and leaves, right? I don't know. Just huge contradictions. I didn't even have to attack anything. He attacked himself in his own interview. So I don't know.
Well, I think a lot of that was.
My whole thing is freedom. I'm freedom driven. I'm not achievement driven. I'm not driven by pleasing other people, right? So if I can go arm wrestle and still maintain all my other freedoms to do whatever I want, I'll arm wrestle, right? It has nothing to do on whether I can win or not win or any of that other stuff, right?
Yep.
I take my losses, right?
Yeah.
I lost to Allen at UAL 10, right, last June, right? I took those losses at UAL 8. I took the losses at Nationals in 2015. I took those losses at WAL Vegas in 2014. So I mean, I don't understand that sort of comment, right? That people not showing up or afraid to lose, right?
Yeah. Well,
I've lost 40 matches. Listen. 40 matches to John Toops.
That's a lot of matches.
I'm 0-40. I'm 0-40, and that was in a 3-month span because there was a circuit in Louisiana run by Ryan Timms. And just as soon as I was getting good enough, he retired until I moved to California. Right? So I'm not afraid of losing. If I can lose to John Toops, I can definitely go to WAL and lose to Todd Hutchins.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I think a lot of those comments were to make people upset and talk about it.
Yeah,
That's all that was.
He was successful
Yep.
with that. He knows how to get under people's skin for sure. What kind of music does your band play, Herman?
The band I'm currently in is sort of alternative, maybe like post-grunge or something like that. I didn't write any of the music. A coworker did, said he needed a bassist. I didn't play bass, so I bought a bass and learned how to play bass.
Yeah.
Right. Personally, I'd rather be in a death metal band. But the guys in the metal band I was in were all like overly emotional and scatterbrained.
No,
Stuff like that.
not death metal guys. They're
Yeah.
all very stable.
I'm not even a musician. I can't write anything. I'm a professional. So the current band works because we have a musician on the drums. We have a professional musician at the lead and guitars, and I'm just a professional, right? I'm not a musician. I'm just a professional. So you tell me what I need to play, I'll show up and play it, right? So, but it's good. I think it's a good hobby. I do have to balance guitar work with training. If I'm training super hard on outside moves, and I'm also playing a lot of fast-picking death metal type stuff,
Yep.
I get tennis elbow. Right, so you also have to factor in those hobbies with arm wrestling as well.
Yeah, my thumbs always give me problems if I play a lot and arm wrestle a lot.
It's my elbow, man.
Yeah. Josh is always so proud of me because I wrote the intro to the song, the podcast.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, it's pretty good. When I heard you wrote it, I was like, okay, we got to speed it up.
It would sound good fast for sure.
I'll make a really fast version for you.
Yeah, there you go.
You got a guy up here, Warren Hubbard, who's an excellent 185-pounder, who's also
And bass player.
a death metal bass player.
Oh
so
no, he's much better than me. That guy sounds cool.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a good guy, man. You'd have fun pulling him too. He's tough.
Super
Herman, this has been awesome, man. This was really a great time. Not that I'm glad that Mike Aiello had to go out and put out fires, but I'm really happy we finally got you on the show, man.
Yeah, I'm glad to be on the show. I'd like to come back anytime,
Love
especially
that.
if the topics are incendiary. I mean, yeah, training questions are great. I usually redirect people to Todd Hutchings' interviews, right? Don't ask me what I do. Todd does 5-3-1, and max effort all the time. That's the key probably. But yeah, I'd like to come back on, especially if it's controversial, or if like
What we'll do is
Vidget's on or Gabi's on, and or Vosgen, we could just make fun of people. That'd be great too.
we'll send John away on vacation for like a week or two, and then we'll do all those shows. That's how we'll work it.
Yeah, that sounds great.
How's that sound?
On my own show, guys.
You can take a break every once in a while, man, so that way you don't have to worry about what we say.
Yeah, you can
be like, these idiots said this stuff. I'm not responsible for it. I was in Vermont or whatever.
Fair enough. All right,
All
my
right,
friend.
Herman.
It was a lot
Thank
of
you
fun.
very much.